Well. You, when I was honored to be challenged as a gladiator here, you asked me afterwards if I knew anyone that I highly respected and that had really been living the way of in the name of truth, going through very, very trying times and difficulties, but still standing in their truth. And I right away said, well, I got Willem. And because Willem, for me, with my type of, I haven't had really a normal life. And so it's very unusual for me to meet someone that understands what it means to be someone like me, that has been walking the same type of path. It's a very, very lonely road. It's a very, very challenging road and dangerous road and horrible road and wonderful road. But it's very few people that I've encountered that have walked a similar way. So when I met Willem, it was just, I felt, oh my God, I love him. I love him right away. It took yeah, because I recognized I don't have to say anything. I don't have to explain anything, or we were just there for each other, understanding. And he has been so meaningful to me in my life. So I just want to tell you how we met, because we met
like brothers, both of you.
But it's like we met in the most strange way ever. So in 2009, I was it was the first time I stepped forward on international radio, and because I had been really scared of and cautious of taking a step forward in public. So anyway, I was invited as a steady guest on a radio show called the Talk Radio Europe, which was going out to 69 different countries internationally. And so for 10 weeks straight, I was exposing every thing I could every week. And it ended with me, they had to stop the show because every time I was on, the technical stuff was hacked and destroyed and the phone lines went down. And because there were only 2 radio stations at that time in Europe that dared to talk about these things, and it was heavily attacked. But anyway, one of these shows, I was talking about chemtrails, so-called chemtrails. Which we have just had now here in Indonesia. The government here have said that they've been spraying the sky to cause rain. I mean, in 2009, every government on the world was denying that they were doing it. I mean, it was absolutely no. It was only for so-called conspiracy theories like this one that this was something real. But anyway, I did the show, and I was talking about what these chemtrails were doing, that they were full of aluminum, barium, strontium, and really causing a lot of harm to us people, but plants and air and all of it. And so after the show, there was this man that called me up afterwards. He said, listen, I cannot believe what you just said. I mean, that cannot be true, that somebody's actually spraying us with chemicals deliberately. And I said, nobody will be happier than I if I'm wrong. I tell you, I would be so happy if I'm wrong. Well, anyway, this guy said, well, I have a friend in Holland. He's a commercial pilot. I will call him and see what he says. So he called his friend in Holland, then called me back again and said, well, my friend in Holland, who knows what he's talking about, he says, that is absolutely not true. It's not logistically possible. What you're saying cannot, it's just not true. I said, well, what can I say? As far as I know, what I presented is the truth. So anyway, that was 2009. Then 4 or 5 years later, I got an email. I was in a really tricky situation. Financially, we were in a horrible situation. Our car had broken down. We lived up in the mountains. I was on my knees. I was burnt out and financially really, really struggling, almost in tears. And out of nowhere, I got an email from somebody called Willem Laptop. And I was like, and this individual was in Thailand at a retreat trying to recover his health. And he said something to the extent that he had been looking around on the internet, he was very frustrated because he felt, I want to do something, I want to make a difference in the world, but I don't know what to do. So he had been searching the internet and YouTube, and he had found specific different speakers internationally that he respected, and he had contacted every one of them trying to say, please, how can I help? What can I do? And so on. And the only one that answered, I think he sent to David Icke and Alex Jones and I don't know, these other ones. The only one that answered, as far as I know, was me. Anyway, so we started communicating, and then he said, is there anything I can do for you? And at that time, it was just like with the car that had broken down, and it was just like, and I said, the only thing you can help with is finances. So this Willem laptop, which later turned out to be Willem, but it was the email from his laptop that was why the sender was called Willem laptop. But anyway, he sent 300 euros. I mean, I was in tears, I tell you. I could hear the angels play in the background. We got the car fixed. I was back on the road again. We could start moving. We could buy some food. It was just a turning point in my life. So we became Willem was starting to say, I want to arrange like conferences, get speakers from the different parts of the world to come together and present this. And I said, I've got a friend in Denmark who's arranging something called the Open Mind Conference, which he is almost like a franchise that he wants to spread internationally, like a concept that can just be used by whoever. So I put Willem and this other guy, Frank Rasmussen, in touch, and boom, I think within a month or two, Willem had arranged an Open Mind Conference in Holland, where I was one of the speakers. Which was heavily censored. The military was there, the police were there. They called us anti-Semites and what was it else? Holocaust deniers. I don't know. It was a real big thing. Anyway, instead of stopping it, Willem and his friend managed very quickly to find another location, and we had this whole conference there. But after that, Willem and I became really, really good friends. So we invited him down to Spain, where I was living. So Willem came down, and one night we were sitting out on the terrace, and I was like asking Willem, so how did you start? What was it that got you interested in this area of conspiracies and for Willem's, especially geoengineering? And then he said, well, it actually more or less started one day when I got a phone call from a friend in Spain that asked me about chemtrails. And that was the first time he looked up and he started noticing chemtrails. And that was the thing that got him started on this road that has led him. So what are the chances? The guy, when I, in 2009, did that show, he called his friend, he called Willem to ask his advice in 2009. And then 5 years later, Willem in Thailand contacts me, having no idea. We're arranging this conference. We meet in Holland, and then we meet again in Spain. And there we find out that was how it all started. What are the chances?
It's not the universe conspire.
It's divine synchronicity.